Guys, welcome back. Welcome home. It's the You Are Here podcast. Can't remember what episode, but I'll tell you what, it's a special one today. We got actor extraordinaire Erik Palladino on the pod, man. Erik, I just want to say thank you for being on the pod, bro. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude. We appreciate you, bro. I know my one half, he had to go do something, so it's going to be me and you right now, brother. But before we get into anything, man, I just want to kind of just for context, because people are like, I imagine our audience is like, Dave, how you getting Erik Palladino on your pod? Like, what's the story? What's the deal? So real quick, I just wanted to say I met you on set of a movie that's set to be released this year, I believe. I play Rocky, man. And what's that?
Thanksgiving weekend.
So guys, Thanksgiving weekend, I play Rocky. Erik Palladino is playing a really cool role in the film. And I was just a boxer on set, and I got to meet someone who I felt like the coolest thing about the experience of meeting you, bro, was like, it was my first time kind of dipping my toe back in the water of going to a major set. I was really focused on making my own stuff and acting in my own films and writing my own stuff, producing. And I was kind of like, I don't know if I'd say jaded or I don't know what it was, but I had turned my back entirely on the industry and tried to just make my own things. And that was my first, I don't know what you want to call it, reintroduction into the world of like a big budget film. And I had these ideas, these grand ideas, like, oh, these guys who, get these roles on these major productions, they're not good dudes. They're not real guys. They're just these pampered, whatever. And I was wrong. I'll say openly I was wrong because I met a really cool guy.
You were on a different type of set than your normal set.
Well, yes. All to say, dude, not to kiss your ass.
If you do a CSI, you're going to run into that.
I guess. But I hit it off with you pretty quick, man. Yeah. I painted a broad stroke and I was wrong. And you were just a down-to-earth dude. So I just want to say thank you for being such a cool down-to-earth guy and chatting with me, just another boxer on set. I appreciated that. And that's how we started chatting, man. And now I know you make your own stuff and we're going to get into it all, dude. But yeah, thank you for being so down-to-earth, homie. I appreciate it.
Too, man.
Yeah, bro.
Too. It's so funny. I when I tell people about you, and I've told a couple of people since, we've met and worked together. He was doing, he was one of the guys that was like, the boxers in the scenes. And any time that, like there was like something that had to be going on in the background that required like more real energy and work, specifically jumping rope, you were doing these, like long 3-minute takes jumping rope, and then in between takes still jumping rope. And I was like, and I'm pretty good at jumping rope, and I have a pretty good stamina for jumping rope, but I know a lot of guys can't hang, and I was just like, oh, he's got a very good, jump rope discipline. You know what I mean? Most guys, they do, you know how it works. You go to the boxing gym, you do about 15 rounds, start out with, 3 rounds of jumping rope or shadow boxing, depends on the person. I like to start out with my 3 rounds of shadow boxing, then 3 rounds of jumping rope, but that's 3-minute rounds. And most guys, they do like 3 2-minute rounds, but you and I are the 3-minute round guys.
Yeah.
And I can tell because as soon as I watch it, they always say like, what is it? Game recognizes game, and as soon as I saw you, I was like, this guy's he's in good shape.
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude. Yeah.
That in a bit.
It was really cool of you, bro. It made me feel at home, it made me feel very much at home. And I just felt like, like you said, game recognizes game. And that's a real guy across there for me in this weird scenario. And let's tell this story best way we can. But it was cool also watching you, bro. I don't mean to give any kind of inside baseball on the scenes or what I saw at the gym, but you were saying these lines, and I didn't know if they were scripted or not, but they were very accurate and genuine in like a boxing situation. And I'm like, it doesn't sound like a screenwriter would write this. You know what I mean? It just seemed, I don't know. You were playing this role, and it was like, wow.
Some of it I did steal from, some of it I wrote just from years of being in the boxing gym, obviously, and I just kind of added some stuff. But one of the things that I said that wound up in the movie is get in, get out, get off.
Oh.
And I stole that from when I was doing research on the character. There was a real guy that played Rocky. So the movie I Play Rocky is about the making of Rocky. with Stallone's story and getting that movie made in the 1970s. Just giving some context to your listeners, and 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 so there was I play the boxing coach who teaches Stallone how to box in the movie, but not Mickey the character that teaches him how to box, so be a better fighter. The iconic Mickey. I play the guy that actually taught Stallone how to box. And there was a guy that existed, obviously, that did that. But there's kind of an argument in folklore if it was this guy says he claims it and this guy said he, a couple of different people take, ownership of that. And but the one guy that I found that there was video of, he was actually in Rocky. He was one of the cornermen in Rocky.
Oh, wow.
But the cornerman in the actual film Rocky was the guy that actually apparently taught Stallone some of the boxing in the movie. And that guy was a boxer. And so I found video of him over the years. And he's always taken ownership of being the guy that taught Rocky how to box in the movie Rocky. And I'm blanking on his name right now. It's terrible, but I'm just blanking because fucking whatever. I got hit last week. No. So anyway, but he said in one of those videos, he was talking and I heard him coaching somebody and he was yelling, get in, get out, get off. And he mentioned like, that's the thing that I always say. And when he said it, because with boxing, each trainer brings something new to the table that you learn, right? And that's why it's such a journey. And even that's why I love the advent of Instagram and I follow all these boxing coaches that I love, all these different boxing coaches. If you go to my feed, it's all boxing, you know what I mean? And occasional, maybe like, cooking stuff because I love cooking, and now really a lot of cement work stuff too. So anyway, the boxing stuff you could find on Instagram is incredible. You learn so much and these little tidbits that you get. And when I heard get in, get out, get off, I was like, that's so good. It's just like perfect because boxing is a mental game. And when you're sparring, if you can keep your cool and, keep your wits about you and you're playing chess instead of checkers, you can do pretty well against even guys that are better than you that aren't using their brain. You know what I mean? And, so I always kind of try to find little tidbits. There was one great boxing coach out of Wildcard Boxing that was Freddie Roach's best friend, this guy Macca, who I used to train with. And he would always say, oh, you're an actor, pretend you know how to be a boxer. He would say that to me back in the 20s and 30s when I was, talking about 3 decades ago. And one of the things that he always said to me, which was great, because that's why my stamina was always pretty good with sparring, is he would say, as an actor, when you're on camera, if you want to be stressed out, you can be stressed out. When you're off camera, you relax, right? He goes, the same thing with boxing. He goes, when you're close enough to the guy punching you, yeah, you could tighten up a bit. You could, get a little tighter. He goes, but when you're, you got the distance and he can't hurt you, breathe, relax, breathe, your breath. So you're not fighting for 3 rounds. You're fighting maybe for 1 minute or 1.5 minutes of the round. The other minute you're breathing and relaxing, 1.5 minutes. That always stayed with me too. So anyway, that's I think you're referring to in a long roundabout way that some of the things that I was saying, I think the get in, get out, get off was such a perfect thing. And it wound up being in the movie. They used it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what I was referring to, dude. And yeah, your experience, I mean, it only like there, as an actor, I think the things that you do in life outside of acting are the things that you're going to take with you into everything that you do, any role that you have. You get to paint with those textures and that paint that you gather in life. And your experience in boxing, man, like, I don't know, I found it so interesting that you had been training at Wild Card and like you spar and you're not just saying words, you know what you're talking about. And I think when you're playing somebody like the guy who trained Sylvester Stallone while he was writing Rocky, that kind of experience is like, I'd hire you too. That makes a lot of sense. You're bringing.
Although I found out that Peter Farrelly, the director, never watched the footage that I sent in
Wow.
of me boxing and me coaching my kids to box. Like I sent like 3 minutes of video of me boxing, jumping rope, hitting the bag, mitt work, and then doing mitt work with my kids to show that I knew how to do mitt work and all this stuff that I've been doing since they were little kids.
Yeah.
And I sent it in with it. And then like after I was shooting with him for half a day, he goes, "Oh, you really box?" And I go, "Yeah, didn't you see my other?" The thing I tortured myself over to put together, and I went through all footage and because I didn't like go do it. I had it on my phone and I edited something together over the years of stuff. And he was like, "No, I didn't see that." Right?
Dude, you just brought to mind. You just brought to mind for me, bro. We were on set, and I was holding mitts for Tomahawk one scene while there was something going on in the ring, and then you came over. We were chatting, and I was holding mitts for you, and we got kind of like yelled at like little kids, man. They were like, "All right, break it up, guys, relax," But I was just having a ball, man. I was having too much fun.
I know when I got on this set, I was super excited about that. I was just like, I go, it's going to be nice to be on a boxing set.
Oh man,
I mean, this funny thing is, it's like, I did that show ER, and when I was on it for the 2.5 years, I realized pretty quickly, like 5 months in, I was like, wow, I don't feel comfortable in a hospital.
Wow.
Like I didn't like being in a hospital, and I was in a hospital, every day, all day.
Yeah.
And you're either the type of person that has no problem being in a hospital or uncomfortable being in a hospital.
Yeah.
And I was, I'm like, the lights, the vibe, it's a hospital. You know what I mean? I made the best of it. My character is pretty outgoing and funny and ridiculous, but I personally felt, like it just wasn't a fit in my, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like being outside or whatever, And so when I was on the boxing set, I felt like, it was a second home. It felt so normal.
Yeah, man.
Even though it was an old school boxing gym from the 70s.
Yeah.
It just felt normal. And when you as an actor feel comfortable on a set, you're going to feel comfortable on screen.
Totally.
Totally. So much of it is about being comfortable, right? All of it.
Yeah.
The longer I do this stuff, the longer I realize that everything in life is about being comfortable. Friends, choosing your friends. Are you comfortable? When you're about to, the director yells action, are you comfortable? You know what I mean? Because Clint Eastwood always says he doesn't yell action, right? They say begin because he doesn't want to startle the horses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's about being comfortable,
Yeah, man.
all of it. All of it.
No, I agree, dude. I agree. And that's why I was doing that crazy jump rope stuff. I'm like, whatever I got to do to make myself stay in something and just be present and comfortable, like you're saying, or just in it. There's no beginning, there's no end. It's life, and they're either going to capture it or they're not. But yeah, no, I agree, dude. And I kind of want to just get into this, man. I know, listen, we're going to talk about other things too, but I'm just really curious, and we had a brief conversation about it on the phone, but for my audience and like people who are listening right now that are your audience and people want to know you more, man, how'd you get into this, dude? Like, what was early life like for Erik Palladino? And how did you stumble, fall, dig, claw your way into an acting career, man?
I mean, I was like 12 years old. It was probably 1980. That's how old I am. And at 12, I think I was like watching Saturday Night Live, John Belushi, you know what I mean? And those guys in the 70s, I was watching them, you know what I mean? Prior to 1980. And I was just really into SNL and obsessively, you know what I mean? Like I was like, oh, like this is it, And then I think I saw Raging Bull with De Niro.
Oh,
My family's from the Bronx, and everybody's from the Bronx in my family, and I grew up in Yonkers, and my family moved to Yonkers, and I think I remember the scene with Joe Pesci and the fork, and you put, and I remember seeing that and thinking, wow, that feels so much like my aunts and uncles and their life, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, and it feels like it was like my family, you know what I mean? And And then I loved boxing already. My family liked boxing and we loved the Yankees, but the boxing was a big part of watching boxing was a big part of my dad. And I loved watching it with him. And my dad had the old 8 millimeter tapes of the Thriller in Manila. And we would watch them on the projector, like, and just watching it and like, and so, I think and then I think around that time in my brain, I was like, well, I mean, I don't want to be a boxer, but maybe I could be an actor, and somewhere in my brain, I just thought I could be an actor. And then I bothered my mom, who was a school teacher. My dad was a heating contractor in the Bronx, boilers and burners and in Harlem. And I just kept bothering her, like, oh, I want to be an actor. I want to be. And she's like, what? I want to be an actor. I want to be. And then she found out about a children's repertory company in New Rochelle. It's called CRC. And it was like a Saturday class for kid actors. And we got really fucking lucky because that class had two teachers, this guy, Bill Green and Beverly Kenny. And they were both like real teachers that went to like college for theater. And they just started this and she was like an older white lady and he was like this skinny kind of Marvin Gaye, beautiful thin black man that, had a beard and was like, kind of 70s out of the 70s and hippie kind of vibe to him. And he taught improv and she taught scene study. And apparently, she died of cirrhosis of the liver years later. Apparently she was like, I found out like her little coffee cup had more than coffee in it on a Saturday morning. But she was a good teacher and he was a great teacher. And then I just fell in love. And, I did one high school production at Stepinac High School. I went to White Plains. I took a bus from Yonkers every day. And I only went there because I heard John Voight and Alan Alda went there.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, go where those guys went. I could have went to the public school in Yonkers. And my brother Chris had gone to Stepinac. And not that they had a big theater program at the fucking Catholic school, but they just happened to go there, And so I did that. And I didn't do high school productions. I just kept on going to that children's repertory company and wound up doing Saturdays and Wednesday nights. I did a couple little showcases downtown with the repertory company at the Lion Theater on 42nd Street. And then around 17, 18, I was figuring out what college to go to. And I was at the Westchester County Center and walking past these cute girls at a booth at the college booth day. And my grades were horrific in school, horrific. I was a terrible student. My mom was killing her because she was a school teacher. You know what I mean? Yeah. And both my brothers, older brothers, both very good students. But they cheated, I think. Anyway, and I walked by these two girls and they were pretty and I was a flirt, you know what I mean? And I was like, hey, such a Yonkers, like, whatever, fucking Italian, Armenian, idiot. And, and I was just like, hey, what's your name? They were like college girls that were cute. And I was 17 with my little tie because I wore a boys' school, and I'm like, how's your school? And they were like, it's an all girls school. And I was like, oh my God, so I can't go. They're like, no. And as I walked away, this is the biggest moment of my life, one of the biggest turns. Because I don't know how real it would have gotten as I got older. You know what I mean? The one girl, as I'm walking away, she says, well, it's co-ed for theater and dance majors. It was like as if she was there representing the school and realized, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, but it is co-ed for theater and dance majors.
Wow.
And I literally was walking away and I went, what? And it was called Marymount Manhattan College. And I was like, give me an application. I took an application home to my mom and I was like, I want to apply to this. And then I knew about SUNY Purchase because that was in Westchester. Yonkers is in Westchester. And I knew that they had a good program, but I said, all right, let me apply to both. I applied to SUNY Purchase. Long story short, SUNY Purchase made you do a classical piece and a contemporary piece. Marymount only made you do a contemporary piece. So I auditioned for Marymount with my contemporary piece. Now, keep in mind, I've been doing it for 4 years, so it was pretty good. You know what I mean? My contemporary piece, was I did something from Dark at the Top of the Stairs, which is what like one of the guys did in Fame when he auditioned for Fame. I just took the same monologue, and then when I went to SUNY Purchase, I did my contemporary monologue, and then they were like, "All right, let's see your classical monologue," and I said, yeah, I don't do Shakespeare. And they were like, I'm sorry, but you have to do a classical piece of whatever. You don't have one prepared. And I was like, yeah, no one's going to want to see me do Shakespeare from Yonkers. And that's literally what I said.
That's the most East Coast young, like New York actor thing I've ever heard, dude.
First of all, so they look at me and they're like, okay, and I'm like, all right, take it easy. And I leave. And, I always say the movie version of that moment would have been like, two of them would have been like, and then one would have went, but there's something there. That never happened. I did not get in. That did not happen. But Marymount, I did get in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I always say the whole reason why I got into Marymount was because they needed men. There wasn't that many men auditioning. You know what I mean? My grades were horrific.
Yeah, dude.
And I got into Marymount. My mom was shocked. Like this kid got into college. Not Westchester Community, which is what we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And then I got in. And I went there for 4.5 years. Me and Moira Kelly, remember Moira Kelly? Me and Moira Kelly, the cutting edge toe pick.
Oh, wow.
She had a big career, like right out of college. She took off like she was doing movies like Chaplin and she was in Westwood. Like she just rocked it right out of the gate. And I went there I was on the 5-year program because I took a semester off and I was failing at one point. I was getting kicked out. Like within a year and a half, they were like every semester, like if you don't get your grades up, you're getting kicked out. And then I went back to Yonkers for a semester. I went back home for a semester and I just worked at Palladino Heating, my dad's business, which I always did, but I did it more full-time for a semester because I was going to get kicked out. They were basically like, why don't you take a semester off to figure out what you want to do here?
Wow.
And because if you don't, we're going to kick you out.
Wow.
But you can come back, And so I took a semester off and my mom was like, you're never going to finish college. You're never going to go back. And so I took that as a personal affront.
Wow.
And then I hated working in the family business because it just wasn't my jam. I liked working with my brothers, but I didn't like working. I didn't want to be a boiler man.
Yeah.
And then I went back and I got my grades up and I was a much better student. And then out of college, I sang in rock bands in New York City for years because my oldest brother, Chris, was in a band that they were signed to Geffen. He was like a pretty successful musician. And then his band got dropped in the late 80s because Nirvana hit and music changed overnight. But when I graduated from college, I was more of a grunge rocking guy and I had long hair and I was a rock and roll guy. And then we came close to getting signed in the early 90s in New York. We were a band called No Happy Faces. We used to headline Limelight and Danceteria and Bitter End, Rockridge, all these cool clubs. And we had a nice following. But I always said if we went to LA at the time, I think we would have gotten signed closer to West Coast because grunge was happening. A lot of New York bands weren't getting signed at that time. But then I started working in the early 90s. I got Comedy Central. I worked with Mark Maron on Comedy Central, short attention span theater. I did that. And that was like one of my first real paid gigs. I was also a VJ on MTV for 6 months.
Wow.
With my long hair. Yeah. And for a year, I was almost a year. And I had a late night show on MTV called Dreamtime after Kennedy's Alternative Nation.
Oh, man.
But the rock thing was like really becoming my thing. I was like, oh, you know what I mean? I love acting, but like I didn't have the best voice in the world, a good voice. It got better and better as I did it more and more. I put my 10,000 hours in, but I was a good songwriter for rock and roll. And my brother, who was like a signed guitar player, like, he was like, dude, you could do this. Like this could happen. You know what I mean? Like, and, he was a legit player. He went to NYU, great musician. And I got better and better at it as I did it, right? And I kind of was looking at acting and being like, I don't know. I loved writing music. I loved writing.
Yeah.
But then acting started playing out for me. You know what I mean? Again, that kind of came back and I auditioned for a sitcom in New York. And I cut my hair after MTV. I cut it for the first time in like years. And I had an agent out of college. I got an agent that signed me out of college, but I didn't get anything because I had long hair and they were like, is he an Italian guy? Is he a rock and roll? Like, what is this guy?
Yeah.
They were confused back right? Like, and then I cut my hair. And the week I cut my hair, I had an audition for a sitcom called Love and Marriage on Fox, and it was a 14 episode order, but they were recasting the role of the son, and it was written by a woman named Amy Sherman, and Amy Sherman went on to create the Gilmore Girls and Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And so at that time, it was her first show, and she was dating a guy named Palladino at that time. And when I auditioned for it, I'll never forget the casting director. I did the audition. It was my first audition with short hair. And the casting director goes, and I was about 24. She goes, "You might be too old to play 17." She goes, and it was like such a cliche. It felt like she had, I don't know if she had a cigarette full of ashtray, an ashtray full of cigarettes at the time, but she was like, "We're going to send you a tape to LA. Let's see how you do, sweetheart." It was like one of those, you know what I mean? After I did the audition, sent it in. 2 days later, they tested me and they flew me out to LA.
Wow.
And it was me against nobody. That was the other thing that was so weird. It was the only test in my whole career where it was me and nobody, and so Amy Sherman saw it and was like, "You're the guy." And then I booked it, and then I stayed in LA, and that was it. That was the beginning of my career.
Wow, man.
I just stayed and I kept working after that and working and created a life out here,
That's unbelievable, bro.
So
that's the journey.
Yeah.
That's from inception to getting going.
The funny thing is, I always think after I did that show, the show got canceled after 9 episodes, which is kind of the story of my TV career. You know what I mean? Outside of ER, every show that I've ever done, you want the show to get canceled, the pilot to not get picked up, put me in it. Anyway.
Oh man.
Not that part. That's my part out.
Dude. I'm going to pause real quick. One sec. Mikey, come back in real quick. Mikey, just pop back in. I'm going to get him in the pod with us so he can wrap up the last 15 with us. Dude, this is such an amazing journey, bro. And I'm really glad to be walking through it with you because it's such a rare thing to be in a position you're in. And I think you lived through, to be quite frank, and you've had a career in the best moments of like television in that era. And you've been able to kind of hit that career because so much has changed, bro. And I'm just kind of watching it, trying to get a foothold in filmmaking, storytelling, and television and all that. But watching it from the outside looking in and kind of seeing the landscape of things, it's changed so much. And I'm just wondering, what have you seen, dude? Like, coming from where you come from, experiencing what you have experienced, the successes, and then how much the industry has shifted.
It's so hard because, like, I sometimes wonder. I was just out with a buddy of mine, an actor that's a little bit younger than me, but he's like, he's around 52, I think, and it's hard to kind of assess certain things, right? Because each time I'm assessing it through the age of that time that I was, right? And age is a big factor how the business sees you, accepts you, deals with you, right? Each age is different. So in your 20s, it's kind of this magical period where like everyone's afraid. They're afraid. They're afraid they're going to fuck up and miss the boat on something that could be the next thing, right?
Yeah.
So that fear gives you more opportunity as an actor, right? In your 20s. Right? They're like, shit, I could have made Erik Palladino, and now he's here, and I passed on. People get afraid, right, on that end. When you're younger, in your 30s, you're establishing yourself as like what kind of actor you are, right? In your 30s, they're like, all right, he's a good actor. We've seen him in a bunch of stuff. You might get the gig, and the gig could turn into the gig, right? And I think like now I'm at the point, where it's like, people, have whatever perception of me. So therefore my perception of how each decade of my career was is a little skewed of like, how it was compared to how it is now. Right. Like, cause I can't really assess how it is now, cause I'm seeing it through the lens of my age now. Right. And so unless I take that lens fully out and then have some sort of real, like, sure, in the 90s, it was busier. It felt easier. It felt like there was more possibility, right? But I was 25, right? And adorable. but now I'm like, 50s and a little like, and and so like, I'm going to get cast if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah,
What I mean?
yeah.
Give me the Italian guy, an Armenian guy that has like a really raspy sounding voice and fucking like a cheese grater. Is really, let me get that guy. I don't know how many people wake up looking for that.
Oh man.
In the morning, but so I mean, I think that I think that we may be on the cusp of something super interesting. So like if the 90s we had these like, kind of cutting edge, this indie world, indie filmmaking, making this beautiful comeback, right? Because of the festivals and Sundance and all. I think that maybe we're going to, because all these movie stars are doing TV shows, right? And they're doing, so I think that there's this potential for indie films, this revolt to take place. Like it hasn't happened in rock and roll, right? Like, like where music, it's like you're waiting for music to kind of say fuck you to what's going on in music, right? And and I'm waiting for like the next Nirvana, the next music wave of, especially the part of me is rock and roll. So I'm waiting for like rock and roll, because rock and roll has to make some sort of comeback at some point.
Yeah,
we can't keep listening to the same fucking thing. Like, and it feels like there's moments. There's some bands out there that are kind of doing some stuff, but so I'm wondering if that can happen with independent films, right? And filmmakers that are doing a little bit more cutting edge things that can wind up finding a home place in theaters, and people go see them again. Maybe they don't get 3,000 theaters, but they might get 500 theaters, and people will go, I don't know any of these people, but they're really good. The story is fucking awesome. And I don't know if I need to wait to see it on just Netflix. You know what I mean? Because there is still something to be said about going to the theaters.
I agree, man. I agree. You're speaking my language, Erik Palladino. You're speaking my language, dude. I think that exists too out there, and I think we just need to find a way to do it. Just find a way to get it to these people, man, because they're out there. I know they want to see films of people they may not know or have seen before, and they want to be touched and moved by a story. I know that, and yeah, man, I believe in that too, dude. I'm hopeful.
I mean, I love my movie stars and people that what I mean.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
But what's tough now is, I think what's discouraging for someone like me, and it makes it harder to feel optimistic, is there was always this sense of I could do some really great work on an audition for a part that like a movie star didn't want, right? Or a big TV star didn't want, and number 4 or 5 on the call sheet, right? But now it seems like the number 4 or 5 on the call sheet even is always somebody famous.
Wow.
And so, I auditioned for something recently. It was an HBO thing, and really great script. The main actor that I would have been like partnered up with in the law firm, and my character was a regular. It was a limited series, and I'm not going to say who because it's not out, but I without a doubt did some of the best work from my career for the thing. And I just realized after I was done, I'm like, they're going to offer it, and it happens so often when, like they're going to offer this to a guy that's, more known than me, a little bit more coming off something big, so you do have to come. And that's always sort of been the case, but I do think 10, 15 years ago in my 40s, it wasn't such a star fucking thing.
Got it.
You know what I mean? It wasn't so much of that. It was like the best actor could win the part, and from the audition, and then they wouldn't, like now it's like, you could be great from the audition, but then they're just going to make an offer to someone who didn't even audition. You know what I mean? It's the producer knows them, or the actor that's the lead is friends with them. And it's great when that lands on you, right? You know what I mean? Like, you're like, I know that producer for 30 years. You know what I mean? I've worked with him, but it just, sometimes it feels like it's impossible. And that's a little bit where I feel like a lot of my fellow actors are feeling, that especially the middle class actors, are feeling a lot of that lately. Like it just feels like, we're getting paid significantly less on the middle class level. And to kind of notch out a career here is getting harder every year because of the fact that they're paying you less. I recently talked about this with the Screen Actors Guild. I was heavily involved in the workers and wages stuff. There's these characters that you play, like I did a season on a show a couple of years ago where I was in every episode and it was a recurring. But in the old days, it would be a series regular if you're in every episode. And when you're regular, you get paid 3-4 times more per episode. Wow. So when you're a middle class actor like me, you might get one of those every 3 years and you make a lot of your money in that one gig, right? And then, you have your regular recurring, real recurrings where you do 2 or 3 episodes in a season. But now what they do is they have you become, I called it a shadow series regular. They basically hire you and they say, oh, it's 2 or 3 episodes. And then they're like, oh, you're in the next 2-3 epides. And what are you going to say once you're there? You're going to say no. And then they're like, oh, you're in the next 2-3 episodes. And next thing you turn around, and you're like, I was in every episode this season.
Damn.
And you're like, I was a series regular. You know what I mean? Like, well, no, you were recurring. That's not because a recurring means like every now and then. Recurring.
Right.
I mean, series regular means every episode. And that's and in the old days, even if you were in 7 out of 10 or 10 out of 13, they would give you a series regular contract because they were afraid of losing you to another show. Right. But now they kind of hold your time under these contracts and they work the desperation of actors wanting to work, and so we're just trying to figure out ways to, make that better for the working class actor because it's not really conducive to keeping the middle class actors staying in this business. A lot of us are going to have to do other things or get out. And I know that, to someone that's, working 40 hours a week, they're like, oh, woe is you, actor, go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? And I get that. I get it. Right. You know what I mean? Go do a side hustle, which is, as you guys know, I am going to do a side hustle.
That's right.
But when you do the side hustle, what can happen is the side hustle becomes a main hustle. And then the guy that's been doing it 30, 40 years, has a skill set, right? I have a very specific skill set. And the guy who has that skill set is no longer going to be in the business, right? And going to get out. And then, you're going to get 50-year-old actors that doesn't have to have the experience that I have and the working knowledge that I have. And then your product's going to go down and down and down. And maybe nobody gives a fuck. And, and then that AI starts making movies and people go, I'd rather watch an AI movie because the real actors suck. So I don't know.
It's a terrifying thought, Erik Palladino. You're scaring the hell out of me right now, dude. I'll say this, bro. I'll say this because I know we're on limited time and I only got you for a little bit, but I'm an advocate for you, dude. If anything comes up going forward, I could ever be of assistance in telling a story with you, dude. You have my vote of confidence, and I got your back. And Erik, dude, he called me a few weeks back, and we just chatted, and he was like, I just wanted to tell you that something about the qualities you saw in my work, and I was like, you didn't have to do that, And it says everything about this dude. And we'd only met once in life and then chatted a bit on the phone. But I was like, that's a rare thing. Like the meaning that has in giving that to someone like myself, bro, that was huge to me. So it tells me everything I need to know about you, dude, very early on in our little relationship we got going on. And I just wanted to make sure everyone else heard like the specificity of the things you told me about my work and what you'd seen. And it was just so cool, dude. And then we talked about life and family and religion and everything. And
I mean, at the end of the day, like, this thing is being, pursuing this kind of crazy thing, it's, and when I see somebody that's, over the years, like, that has a a talent, and I know how hard this thing is and how hard on the spirit it is, you know what I mean, to consistently show up and do this thing over and over again in the face of so much rejection and so much, you're not supposed to be doing this for a living. You could do something else. It's, you're crazy for trying to pursue this thing. And, put yourself in a position where it's going to have to pay for your family, you know what I mean? And put food on the table. What the fuck are you thinking? Mm-hmm. I think, to have another peer recognize, something, and if you think it, you should share it, So to me, I saw it, I looked at, so you guys know, I saw like some things you posted on Instagram of scenes you were in, and I only knew you from jumping rope, you know what I mean? On the day, but I had a feeling then. I was like, oh, there's something about this guy that feels like he's got like a authentic, genuine kind of thing going. And then once I saw like your work, I was like, yeah, this confirms what I thought, you know what I mean? Because, I've been doing this again, as you know, 43 years. So, I know that I at this point I could just tell quickly, you know what I mean? It's got a talent that's unique and interesting and important to share. And so when I saw your work, I was like, oh, just in case if he doesn't know it, it's important for me to make that call so that he hears it from another artist, because we may not hear it from casting people and producers and fucking directors even, you know what I mean? So it's important that we have those conversations with each other to reconfirm that our path is the correct one. Yeah.
It meant the world to me, man, to get that kind of call. I really appreciated it, dude. It keeps the fire going for sure. Means the world. So yeah, man, and that kind of authenticity I just see in you too. So I'm like, we got to find a way to tell a story, bro. We got to tell a way to do something. I'm telling you, bro.
I've been wanting to write a show, an angry, I keep on calling it a violent Seinfeld.
A violent Seinfeld.
I want to write where I'm like, we call it Palladino. Just a potentially violent Seinfeld. Yeah. Everything is a little like, this could go the wrong way. And sometimes it does go the wrong way.
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude. Well, do you have, how about like advice, man, for someone in my shoes or other actors in our shoes like myself, or people who are just getting started? Any kind of advice right now, looking back, or dudes that are in the shoes that you're in?
I'm going to say the same thing that I say to myself. We got to start writing and creating our own shit and not waiting for people to give us the green light.
Amen. 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 I'm with that 100%, bro.
Whether it be making creative stuff here or like I said, my side hustle for me is creative. And I just listen to that thing that feels exciting. Yeah. Right? If I'm feeling excited by something, I'm going to try to follow that path.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Whatever that is, you got to listen to that. If you're a little excited by something, even if you're scared, you got to kind of go towards that. Right.
I agree.
So that's the biggest thing, I think.
I got you, dude.
That little light bulb that's doing its thing.
Yeah, man. Last thing for me, Erik, do you have any anything if you were to look back on your life and you're like, man, I had a wild, weird conversation with someone that meant a lot to me, or someone that I just met, or someone in passing that they said something to me that stuck with me and I've carried it throughout my life. It rings true. What's something that you heard or a piece of advice or something that it keeps coming up? It's something that someone told you that you carry with you.
I think like my dad passed away a year and a half ago, 91 years old.
Sorry, brother.
He said so many little things to my brothers and I growing up. He's like, it was always like these little wisdom things, little pieces of wisdom, and he would always say to me, friends come and go, but family stays, and he would say that to me. So, friends come and go, but family stays. And it's funny, I'm such a family guy, but my family is, some of it is my family, and some of it is my chosen family, right? And my dad was really applying it to family, right? But for me, that, I think for our generation too, it's, we're a little bit more open to the idea of family, right?
Yeah.
And so, I think a profound part of who I am and how I walk through my life is I hold my family and my friends at the highest level of importance in my life. So yeah.
Anything for you, Mikey? Before Eric's got a split.
Dude, I'm so sorry I couldn't be here, but
all right. It's all right.
I'm glad I could press the record button for you guys.
Thank you.
I wanted to bring up this thing of
What thing,
like a
Mikey?
new studio being built by like the entertainment guy in Patterson. They want to build like a new studio.
Oh, in New Jersey.
In New Jersey.
Yeah.
In the Padawagon like factory. And it's just interesting because you guys were talking about kind of, why people, you guys were talking about like the 90s and like how maybe things were just because, you were 25 and things were this way because you were a go-getter back then. When you're 25, you're like, fuck, I gotta, you know what I mean? You're trying to every avenue to get to where you got to go. And I just saw this guy talking about, it's like the entertainment magazine, like create the guy that started it is buying this factory to turn it into a place to make micro dramas, which I don't know what that means.
I don't either.
And I'm like, hey, is that the avenue for, where film's going to go now?
Your boy's about to be in a bunch of micro dramas.
Like, I'm pretty sure Tubi didn't really work out, or I guess maybe it did.
It's still out there. It's still
or like the vertical movie type of thing.
They're still doing vertical short. Yeah, very much so.
Verticals are huge.
Really?
Micro dramas are
I just want to maybe just get your opinion on that.
I feel like it's a trend. Most of them are non-union. So I know a bunch of guys that are like non-union guys that are working and making some money. Like they are starting to get some more union people. I'd be very surprised if they had long-term, following, but it's hard to say because I look at my kids, right? And, as much as I'm always like, get off that YouTube, put on our parents were like, get off TV, read a book. This generation is get off YouTube, watch a long form.
That's awesome.
I don't want to see you watching that shit that doesn't have a beginning, a middle, and it's wild, this shit, I'm like, it's so. My dad would be like, get off the idiot box. And I'd be like, Dad, I'm studying.
Right on.
Yeah, man. Dude. Yeah.
I do think that there's, obviously they're doing well. I don't think I personally, but this could be an old man talking. I don't know. But my kids, who knows? You know what I mean? My kids still like watching movies, but if they watch a movie at home and they're holding a phone, some point during the movie, that might happen.
Yeah.
Right. If I'm in the room, it won't. But the attention span has changed.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting too, man, is like even I don't know. My pops is staying with me at my place, and he watches a lot of movies. And sometimes like I go and I'm like, it's not the best movie.
Yeah.
But like during those times, I try to sit down sometimes and like watch with them, and I'm like, man, I just want to look at my phone because it's not that great, like what I'm watching. So I'm like, man, am I just like things are changing in my brain? Like, no, I can't even sit through.
That's what it is, dude. We're up against it. We're up against it with the attention span stuff and the quick hits of dopamine and all that's changing our brain chemistries. And it's harder for people to sit down and watch a film, especially young people.
But when the movie is like good, yeah, we do too.
Go to bed at night.
Yeah,
it's like 9:00, 9:30. Kids are in bed, and then all of a sudden I'll go on the phone for a little bit. We're like, oh, let's watch that show, and then like 20 minutes will go by, and I'm starting to get sleepy, and then we don't watch a show, and it happens a couple times a week, but we don't watch anything. Last night we watched nothing.
Right,
looked at the phone for 10 minutes, fell asleep.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
But if it's good, you're gonna watch. That's the thing.
If it's good, it stops the phone from getting raised into your freaking face, dude. Absolutely, bro.
If it's good, you're gonna watch. No doubt about it.
No, it's a good point. That's a good point, Mikey.
It just makes me think, man.
And the other thing that's going to change is like, I like, look, Dave and I, in the next, 2 years could be like, hey, let's do a New York Game of Thrones.
Ooh.
Right. You know what I mean? And we could do that in a studio.
Yeah.
And, like I think in like 2 years, there's going to be studio spaces that literally are going to make it so easy for two idiots like us to, to do like some big looking budget movie where we're like the stars.
Yeah.
Right. So that's exciting. That part's exciting. You know what I mean? Like I said to a friend of mine, I go, what's even more exciting is like if I want to do a 30-year-old version of me, right? Like, yeah, you're going to use my face, but you're going to make me 30 again on screen. And I'm going to be up to be Erik Palladino, this new movie star at 30, the young version. You know what I mean? Like, it could go so many different ways, this thing.
Yeah, man.
That could be really conducive to creative people doing and that don't have as much money, doing things that compete with these big budget people.
Totally. It evens the playing field in a major way. The thing that's pissing me off a little bit, I'll be honest with you, bro, is the Val Kilmer stuff. But we're not going to talk about it because you got to go and we got to get you out of here. But dude, I'm just sending you off spinning like a top right to get your car. Because this Val Kilmer stuff is killing me, man. With this AI, bringing it back to life stuff. Anyway, Erik, dude, you are the man. Davey's in your corner. Mikey,
I'm in.
Yeah, Mikey's in your corner. Whatever we can do, we're here. Erik Palladino, go check it out. Erik, anything that you want to drop? Anything you want to say before you go?
No, we got that movie I Play Rocky coming out, and I got that other movie with Al Pacino called Father Joe coming out. I don't know when that's coming out, but I'm excited about both of those. We didn't get to talk about working with Pacino. That was
man, you'll have to come back, dude. We got to get the Pacino chat.
I'm going to get you back.
Dude,
I got a great Pacino story.
I can't wait to hear it. Guys, you got to tune in for the next.
Look forward to.
Got to tune in for the next Erik Palladino episode, guys. You Are Here podcast episode, whatever. I don't even remember. Mikey,
we talked about grills.
We can't talk about grills. He's got to go. He's got to go. Next time.
That's all I got, man.
No,
grills.
No.
Grills, man.
We're taking
concrete. Concrete, man.
Wives.
Man things.
Hopefully I'll have my GC license, but
yeah, I think next time we'll talk contracting talk, dude.
My name's Mike. I'm signing out.
My name's Dave. I love y'all. Please be kind to yourself. Please be kind to one another. Boom.